Thank you everyone for joining until now, and for everyone who is going to join until the end of the day. I'm really honored to share this session with the experts of the field, and this session is also very heartful for me because I'm sharing that with my mentor, with Dr. Michela Casanova, who is an excellent person, renowned scientist and researcher. And she is a pediatric oncologist at the National Cancer Institute in Milan and board of directors of IOP. And also she is involved with ITCC in a lot of initiatives. I will share also this session with Professor Gregory Reaman, who is the Scientific Director of Childhood Cancer Data Initiative at National Cancer Institute, with Professor Nai-Kong Cheung, who is the Neuroblastoma Program Head at the Memorial Sloan Kettering Cancer Center, and also Janneke van der Kamp, who is the CEO of Norgine Pharma. So welcome everyone to this session. Thank you again for joining us. And to start with, I would like to, as you are all involved in the new drug development, I would like you to share your perspectives, how you envision the future of pediatric drug development, innovation therapies, targeted therapies, immunotherapies. How do you see the future of pediatric oncology in that matter? And to start with, I would like to give the floor to Dr. Michela Casanova.
Thank you, Shushan. I hope you heard me well, and thank you for inviting me in this important initiative. And I'm honored to be part of this, and also to be your mentor. And I know that the main initiative of this Oncothon is collect money for middle low income countries, and I'm lucky to work in a place where 80% of the children are cured. But over the time, I'm becoming older, and every single child I lost is not enough. Is not good, and the only way as a pediatric oncologist to react to this is doing research to find new drugs and so on. So I'm a believer in protocols, and so I think we don't have enough protocols, and the new drug development field is having some challenges because we are facing some difficulties in convincing companies to invest in pediatric oncology, and some initiatives have been driven to make incentives for company to make this field that is obviously not very important from an economical point of view of an attraction also for industries. And I think a lot of us had invested in precision oncology over the last year. That was considered the solution for everything, because cancer is a genetic disease. So there was a hope that having the profiling of a tumor can help you to find the right drug. But unfortunately, this is true for a minority of the patient. For that kind, percentage is fantastic, but still we need to find a new way to attack the tumor. And a lot of hope is now on CAR T or other way to target the surface of the cell, like ADC, that have changed a lot. Has entered adult cancer development, and we in leukemia there are examples, but in solid tumor we are still waiting for this. And we are a lot of hope also in new class of drugs and like degraders that can really attack the driver of these diseases that are not undruggable right now. So pediatric oncology is a field where we can try to take advantage of what is happening in the adult world, but then we also need specific drugs for specific pediatric target, and this is the most difficult part of our work.
Wonderful. Thank you so much for sharing that. Let's give the floor also to other speakers and at the end to have a small discussion. Professor Gregory Reaman, let's see, what are your perspectives in this matter?
Thank you very much, and thank you for allowing me to participate in this event. And I certainly agree in large part with Dr. Casanova's statements. I think the advances that have been seen in adult oncology or medical oncology in adults with cancer with precision therapy approaches have really been remarkable and have changed cancer as we know it. I think many common adult cancers, particularly non-small cell lung cancer and melanoma. Unfortunately, and as she also mentioned, we do know that the cancer is a genetic disease that is caused by genetic perturbations. And although there is certainly overlap, and there are some pediatric tumors that do have the same molecular drivers, it's really very few childhood cancers in which that's the case. So I think efforts to identify new potential molecular targets in pediatric cancer are certainly warranted, and that requires probably, in addition to whole genome sequencing and RNA sequencing, also deeper dives as well as proteomics and metabolomics that might actually, in addition to develop in identifying molecular drivers, also help in the identification of antigenic targets or potential antigenic targets that can be used or exploited with new therapeutic approaches, whether it's through engineered cell therapies or antibody drug conjugates. And I think there are opportunities. I think there have recently been some advances which have demonstrated targets that are important or relevant in pediatric cancers that may well not be in adult cancers. And then the problem is really trying to motivate, if you will, pharmaceutical companies to develop these drugs because what transpires in academic research laboratories, unfortunately, doesn't automatically result in the availability of a drug that a child with cancer can access and doesn't enter the clinical field. It really requires a process of pharmaceutical development and approval, regulatory approval by regulatory agencies in different parts of the world, and then distribution, and of course, access. So there are, I think, multiple streams of evidence that really now demonstrate more collaboration between pediatric cancer investigators in the pharmaceutical industry. And we would like to see more of that before assuming my current position. I was for 11 years at the U.S. Food and Drug Administration as the director of pediatric oncology and the Oncology Center of Excellence. So there are a number of incentives. There are a number of legislative initiatives that have been developed both in the U.S. and Europe. And we ultimately would like to see these being used by pharmaceutical companies and beyond what might be possible in developed countries in North America and in Europe. Obviously, the majority of children with cancer live outside of these areas. So how do we get these promising new drugs that generally are quite costly, sometimes difficult to administer, and require special considerations? So working together to make it possible for these drugs to be accessed by every child with cancer, irrespective of where they live, is something that we really have to focus on in the near future. Thanks.
Thank you so much for that comprehensive overview. Let's give the floor also to Professor Nai-Kong Cheung, see what he thinks about the new drug development.
Okay, well, good morning and good afternoon. Thank you again for the invitation. I'd like to give a little more personal story and then, kind of emphasize the importance of scholarship, fellowships, in mentorship. And now, obviously, from a personal story to understanding this is a team effort and then maybe a global effort. My story started when I was 18 years of age. I left my home, middle income, low income home, and went to the US for education on a scholarship. I was very naive, but I wanted to learn as much as I can and actually go to medical school. It was a uphill struggle. I finished my degree in U Chicago and ended up in Harvard Medical School. Actually did the Harvard MIT combined health program. When I finished my PhD, which was in immunology, I started my internship. And that was really the first time I knew that I got into the right profession, because it's a giving profession that it's hard to find anything compared to it. But soon I realized that medicine, despite its potential, there are many limitations. But it's only really big when I was attending physician that I really began to feel the urgency and the responsibility. I was dealing with high-risk metastatic neuroblastoma when we were giving very high doses of chemotherapy. I felt personally responsible for all this suffering because I was the one who wrote the chemotherapy order. I made a promise. I made a promise to myself and to my patients. I need to find something better than chemotherapy, something that is curative, but without the side effects. It's a dream, but after 40 years, I think it's slowly coming true. But it's even more urgent as I watch the day in, day out. Outpatient, inpatient, all I'm dealing with now are the toxicities of treatment. Fever, neutropenia, vomiting, diarrhea, organ damage, infertility, and on and on and on. And dealing with toxicity, it seems to be part of the trade. I refuse to accept that. So more than 30 years ago, I decided to develop antibodies to treat neuroblastoma, which is one of the most, I think, lethal tumor back those days. I thought maybe immunotherapy could eliminate small volumes of disease, but maybe antibodies could reduce the high doses of chemotherapy that we need. So in Memorial, the early days, we really have no pharmaceutical support, not even government support. We had to raise money. We had to raise money from donations, from foundations. We had to beg everywhere to make antibodies so that we can give it to our patients. So with the mouse 3 which you may or may not know, for neuroblastoma, we treated over 1,000 patients, not with any pharmaceutical support, not with any federal support, but really from donations from parents, donations from foundations. So we finished our phase 1 study, and then we went on to humanize. And in the humanize, we actually got the support of the Band of Parents, which is, and again, a parents group. And that turned out to be quite successful. And before it was picked up by YMAP Therapeutics, and the antibody humanized 3 called naxitamab, also trade name Danielson, became FDA approved for neuroblastoma in 2020. So for those last 2 decades, we have decided that we need to continue to build better antibodies to reduce toxicity, because that was my goal. So we now have a vaccine program where we can induce an anti-GD2 antibody in patients, antibody almost like identical to naxitamab, but in patients, but without any of the side effects of pain. We also developed imvotamab, which is another antibody called 8H9 that is directed at B7H3. Again, initially with no pharmaceutical support. What we did our phase 1 studies, deliver radioisotopes to patients with brain metastasis with leptomeningeal disease. We use it to deliver radioisotopes to DIPG. We use it to deliver isotopes to intracranial desmopositive concentration. So those experience really taught me a lot. Taught me already said the importance of the sort of a team effort, the importance of foundations, donations, scholarships, fellowships. And now with the advances in protein engineering and manufacturing, we are now actually developing isotopes with more power than even the proton beam, except that proton beam you have to give by external machine. But these isotopes we can deliver with antibodies. We are making incremental advances over the years, but we're now getting really close to what we had once imagined, and that is curing cancer with minimal or no toxicity. And I want to emphasize again, we're trying to cure cancer with minimal or no toxicity, because that is the dream. The lessons we've learned a lot about, besides the science, we learn how to make a drug, manufacturing a drug, using all kinds of approaches that may be out of the box to deliver this drug to our patients. I hope the day will come where we don't have to spend all the days in the clinic dealing with toxicities. Now that I follow patients for decades, the price of cure is steep. Much of that is because of the toxicity of the treatment, which I'm responsible for. I've never lost my purpose, why I went to pediatric oncology. Every day I go to work, I feel hopeful. I'm excited. The cure is around the corner. I do feel morally responsible for finding a cure without the heavy price that our patients have to pay. I know it's a race with the clock, but it's also a race with my own destiny. So I'm proud to be part of this global effort to give every child a future, in fact, a joyful future, cure for more, but joy for all. And I want to congratulate the members of the SIOP and supporters of SIOP. To my colleagues, I'm honored to be part of the team. But to the parents and the patients, I want to thank you for your trust in us. We never forget the promises we made. Thank you.
Thank you so much. That was very inspirational and emotional. Starting from from your career, how you started, and one of the aims of the Oncothon is also to give research grants to young investigators, to have career development awards, park grants. So that is also could be a step to the new drug development in the future. So that is one of our aims as well. And now I would like to give the floor Janneke van der Kamp, who will share her perspective from a pharma point of view. We all spoke about the clinician point of view, but let's see also the perspective from pharma.
Thank you very much, and very happy to be here as the only non-clinician in the room. I'm a chemist by training, and indeed have been in the pharma industry for about 25 years. Worked for a long time for a very large pharma company, Novartis, but I've joined a small pharma company, Norteen, 4 months ago as CEO. And maybe I'll give you just a minute on Norteen, and then talk about the challenge that you raised around specific, pharmaceutical development in pediatric oncology and why there's much fewer drugs than in adult oncology. And I also very much liked the emphasis of Professor Cheung on the importance of survivorship and the price of survival. Very inspirational speech that I think is really key. So Norteen is a small pharmaceutical company, only 1,600 employees, which bigger companies may have around 100,000, just to give you a perspective. The company is more than 100 years old and is based in Europe and Australia. That's where we have our footprint, so not worldwide, but Europe and Australia. And the history of the company is actually more in gastrointestinal diseases. But in the last few years, the company has built a second pillar, let's say, in pediatric oncology. And I've discovered this field also very recently for myself. And I think the first thing that I feel today and in the meetings that I've had with other members of this community is what a tightly knit and passionate community it is between doctors, patient associations, pharma companies, and all actors in the system. And that's exactly what we need to address these challenges, since the previous speakers already alluded to how complicated it is to do drug development in such a luckily rare disease as pediatric oncology. And that is indeed where the real challenge lies for pharma and for drug development. Adult oncology has large numbers of patients, and what we need when we want to develop a medicine is not just, of course, the invention, the research, but do studies with significant patient numbers to then satisfy the regulators, right? Prove that the drug is beneficial and has more benefits than risks. And for that, for those regulatory approvals in the US or Europe, you need large numbers. And that, of course, is one of the biggest challenges in pediatric oncology, that the numbers of patients in those very specific indications are, of course, luckily, but are relatively small. And that makes it very hard, very complex to develop medicines for these specific pediatric diseases. Just to give you a statistic that I saw from the European Regulatory Agency, in hematological oncology since 2016, there have been 48 approvals for adults, so new medicines for adult oncology, but only 7 for pediatric oncology. So I think that kind of makes it very clear how big the challenge is. But I think, it is doable. It's doable, and I feel that, larger pharma companies, and I've worked for a large pharma company, of course, for a long time. You make an equation of, how much effort am I gonna spend on developing a medicine in a certain indication, and then do I get a return for that? And if you are a large pharma company, then these tiny indications, are really maybe not the right thing to focus on. They just will sort of disappear in the size of the company. I think the benefit of a smaller company that I'm working for now is that we can work very closely with the community. And even if the effort is high and in the end, the return is maybe limited because there are just not so many patients around, for a smaller company, that is still, a case that can fly. So we as a company are very passionate together with all of you to make sure that, transformative therapies get developed also for kids, and that they make their way to the children in need. But indeed, I think collaboration is key, because nobody can do this alone. You really need to work with the clinicians, but also with the very active patient and parent organizations to make sure that companies, trial sites, and patients really find each other, so that we can, gather these numbers, the numbers of patients that you need to have enough data to submit your file to a regulatory agency like the EMA or the FDA. It's a challenging task, but I think it's doable, and I'm encouraged by this forum and by how collaborative the community is to really make this happen all together. It's not us against somebody else. It's really all together. How can we ensure that we run those studies and that we make those medicines available to those children who need them? And I think if we have time for discussion, which we may not have, but I really thought Professor Cheung put in very important emphasis on the price of survival. I fully agree that survivorship now, quality of life of patients after they've survived their initial cancer, is such an important topic that we need to pay at least as much attention to, I think, as we have done in the past decades to survival per se. And when I say us, it's not just the community here on the phone, but also the regulators and the payers need to start realizing that since we have advanced so much in improving survival, we should really now also think very much about survivorship and the future of these children. So looking forward to continue to work with the whole community here to make this happen.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. Thank you for sharing your experience also from the pharma perspective. And unfortunately, you are right. We are limited. We have limited time for the discussion. That's why I would like to wrap up the session. And thank you, all the speakers. It was a great honor for me to share the session with you, with the people who are making the change in the field. And thank you again, everyone. And let's dive into the next session. Thank you.